Good morning. This is Bill from Curious Cars and Autohaus of Naples on a, it could be worse this morning. It isn't that bad. We had some rain last night, so we get a little bit of a less humid morning. I'm not sure why that is. You'd have to ask a weatherman, because I would assume the ground is full of water that's going to bake off, but at the moment it isn't. It's probably in the high 70s, which isn't the worst. And for, at least once in the last few weeks, I'm not dripping and moist doing this review straight off the bat. So that's an absolute plus. Not bad for mid-May, and obviously things are going to get much worse soon. So I'm going to suck up this last little bit of what we had over the winter time today, and that's good. Also, animals, minimum, and have been for a while. I haven't seen a deer. I haven't seen even many birds. You can hear them. They're going batshit around the place, but I haven't really seen them, and none have come at me in any kind of a threatening manner. There's been no armadillos, no rabbits, so I can't say I really know what the hell is going on. I do have some insects flying around, so at least we've got that going for us. Not even Peter's cats. You know, those things used to come out here and act menacing around me while I was doing this, and I haven't seen one in a long time, and I'm a little bit suspicious of what's going on with them. I'm already a little bit suspicious of a middle-aged guy who owns multiple cats. I mean, there's something a little bit strange about that. But beyond that, I'm more curious about what might have happened to these things, because they just simply haven't been around, and the goats are a distant memory. Once again, we're up on Twitter. I've been dicking around with that a little bit. I've lost some of my thrill for it because I'm starting to find it more complex. You want to have like a conversation or something, and the way that it's set up, it's not entirely straightforward, but I am going to keep at it because God knows, I don't know, it's something to do, and it'll be fun to try and, make shit happen over there. And also, again, when Penelope's Curious Car Gear shows up, we'll figure out how to disperse that. But anyway, look, I keep promising short videos and I don't deliver, and I don't know why, because I feel them being short even as I'm doing them, and then they somehow, explode into these 50-minute screeds that you have to dedicate half a night to. So in that spirit, in the effort to try and tone that down, I'm going to jump right into this car. We're going to take a running dive right at it. This is a 2002 Mercedes-Benz S 500. It's a W220 platform, they call it. And it's one of the cars of my recent past. When I saw this show up at Autohaus, it's not one of my personal cars, it's one they got somewhere, I don't know where, and I saw it sitting there and I thought, man, that is the kind of bread and butter thing that I started doing on YouTube a few years ago. I do like cars like this, and I'm going to do a review. I've done them before, what the hell. I'm going to do one again, at least until I find the more interesting stuff that I really want to do, but this one will do for now, and I do like them. I do like these cars, even if we're going to talk about every single fault and horror story that it has. So we're going to get into that right now. This was somewhat controversial, this model. The I probably said S220 because I'm a little bit retarded this morning. I've been a little bit deep into the whiskey, whether it's for, keeping the Soviets away or keeping the coronavirus away. It's just a very useful tool, that whiskey. It's like a hammer. A hammer that you use to pound a nail, and you just have to have it hanging around. But anyway, it's a W220, and it's the 4th generation S class. They've been building S classes for decades, but they weren't really named S classes up until the the W116 in the 1970s. That was the first true official S class, and then the W126, which is one of my all-time favorites, a terrific car, that was replaced by the W140, which was replaced by this car. And the W140 was controversial, maybe even more so than this one, and the W221, oh my God, what a jumble of crap. Anyway, the W221, which replaced this car, was also, slightly controversial. And it's almost like S-Classes tend to be controversial, or at least they did in the past when, innovation, styling, and character in vehicles seemed a lot more distinctive than it does today. It's a lot more cookie cutter today. You can't really say a car is controversial when 19 other cars share its underpinnings, But even back in 2002, when this car was being built, individual companies had a little bit more individual character than they do now. And that is what made, when an S came out, there's a reason they tend towards controversy. It's an important car. And, for decades, these cars were the standard of the world, as, Cadillac would call itself, which that was true in a certain era of Cadillac. But Mercedes-Benz S classes really took that over. I mean, it was the luxury car by which all other luxury cars would be judged. It was a definitive luxury transport that just emanated success and importance, and it bestowed a certain level of respect for and curiosity about the occupants even before a door opened. It's the chairman of the board type stuff, Eastern European gangster, third world dictator, high government official, and royal family on vacation type stuff. It's just one of those cars that says somebody has arrived and let's see who the hell it is. But at a certain point, the models, they get a little bit older, they grow out of fashion, they start coming down in price, and they fall into the realm of posers and commoners like me. All of a sudden I can afford the damn things, and Johnny Punch Clocks get a taste of the elitist life. And one of the points we'll hit on in this is, can a regular cat on a regular income buy and maintain one of these cars? I've probably done it before, and clearly the answer is going to be no, but we'll touch on that amongst the other stuff as we go. But when you drive an older S-Class and you look out this big window and down the long hood and you see this Mercedes star gleaming and glinting and twisting in the sun, you think how life might have been different if you'd made some better decisions, if you hadn't married that horrible woman, if you hadn't drank yourself into stupidity, or if you'd just been born a Kennedy. It's a car that gives you that. It's the stuff that dreams are made of, or at least they were. I don't see that anymore. I mean, I recently did a fairly new S class. I did Ulf's S, which was the next gen after the 221, and then I did one they had at Autohaus, I don't know, about a year ago, the most modern S-Class, probably been replaced by now, and I just wasn't that impressed with it. I mean, it was all computer screens and mood lighting and perfumeries, and it was just like, I got the Tesla has become an aspirational car for the youth, which has taken Mercedes again by surprise. They were taken by surprise in Lexus in 1990, and now Tesla seem to be what the snowflakes are after. So Mercedes is in a big rush to TikTok up their cars to make them more appealing to younger buyers, because as it were, they became the stuff of early bird dinners and whatnot, almost the way Cadillac did in the late 70s and 80s. They were trying desperately to appeal to a younger crowd, but it wasn't happening. Not sure if Mercedes is having any success with that or not, but it's certainly what they're trying to do now. In some ways, the S was the first move towards that. This S, this W220. Mercedes had tried to build the greatest car in the world with the S-Class that preceded this one, the W140. It was this giant... It was an incredible product, but it was oversized, overbuilt, over-engineered, and overpriced, and it was thought to be stodgy. It didn't go the way that Mercedes thought it would, partially because it was so full of new... It was this big impact of old Mercedes traditional accoutrements with new Lexus competitive technology that, it was an amazing package when it worked, but it didn't always work, and that became a problem. And it was also extremely expensive and out of the reach of a lot of people, and that was also a problem. So Mercedes was thinking about how to address that, how to change, how to become more less like, Prince Charles going to a UN meeting to talk about climate change after flying in his Boeing, and more about being the family car for a, well-to-do family that owned a nice drywalling business or something. So that's why they bought Chrysler, by the way, to sort of figure out a way to build the cars to be more cheap. If you will. And, again, it's not entirely fair because you could argue that they had to do it, but they did it. And basically, this car came under a lot of flack for being cheap. They said that Mercedes had sacrificed this timeless quality of being a true livery vehicle that was to be maintained and driven forever to become sort of a scrimped-on luxury cruiser that would only last as long as its lease term. So it was pretty controversial at the time. It was definitely smaller than the S Class that became before it. It was lower, and but I don't think it's entirely fair to say it was much cheaper because it was still expensive. Even if it was, it was like 10 grand less than the one it replaced, but it was still shockingly expensive, and it was still absolutely chock full of high-tech crap that could break while sitting still and put an owner in the poorhouse. So they did try to keep it going there. I mean, it had a hydropneumatic suspension available, Airmatic standard air suspension, but hydropneumatic you could get. It had a fiber optic wiring harness with multiple computers and data bus interfaces. And for the first time, there was an available 4MATIC all-wheel drive system that was infinitely complex. And some of them had high-tech engine management with cylinder deactivation a la Cadillac in the 70s. There was digital audio. There was driver adaptive transmission, self-leveling xenon headlamps, self-closing doors, all this stuff that very quickly and easily can break and, cause you a lot of trouble when you go to a shop like my friend Andrews, who, he talks to people with broken S-Classes like he's an undertaker, and it works out well for him. So anyway, there it is. There is sort of the sum total of why this car existed and how it came to be in 2000. It came out in 2000, and it was meant to be smaller, cheaper, lighter, more accessible, and still a Mercedes. And I think they did pull that off. I mean, it does still have an impact, but it is not the car that the W140 is. And I guess my argument is maybe it had to be that way. The W221 that replaced it, considered, many people think it's a step up. I don't like the styling as much as I do on this car, or the 140, or the 126 from the past. But I do think it had, I guess the technology had matured enough to not be so dodgy, to be much more rigid. And anyway, so look, I'm going to pause for a minute. We're doing this quick. This one's going to be a quickie, and then we're going to dive into the exterior styling of this car and start going through it. So bear with me for one moment. All right, so let's jump right into the styling of this car. Again, it came out in 2000 in the United States. It was probably earlier in Europe, but 2000 here, early model. And it was a sea change from the prior S Class when it rolled off the assembly line. It, didn't look anything like the 140. It was shorter, it was narrower, it was not quite as tall, and of course it was a little bit less expensive. The design originated in '92, so Benz took a long time to put it together, but the styling of the car was pretty well previewed by the F200 concept car that Mercedes showed in '96, particularly the headlights, and the headlights were a big difference from Mercedes. These cars underwent a quick redesign in '04. The headlights changed, and the grille became more upright and some other stuff. But otherwise, the car remained basically the same through '06 and was then replaced by the next gen in 2007. But it is much, much sleeker, undoubtedly, than what came before it. It's got a more raked hood. It's got rounder lines. It's got swoops and curves that weren't on the other one. This one is finished. It's kind of a signature triple black theme. I mean, it's the holy grail color for S classes now, and it's surprising how few were ordered that way. I mean, in this color combo with this AMG Sport Pack, this is the true stuff of a Lithuanian gangster. Maybe at the time, certainly more of a low-level gangster today. This is the look that they wanted. But you see it had the, kind of a traditional Mercedes grille, but more aerodynamicized. Fortunately, did still have the hood star coming up, which is great. That's Mercedes land and sea and air. One prong points at each, and they're going to dominate all of them in traditional German fashion. This one having the AMG Sport Pack, you get a little bit of treatment on the bumpers. You get these bigger AMG 5-star alloys, which are nice. You get the a little bit of a tuned rocker panel down there, and also the rear bumper. I have to say, this is a particularly nice example. I see a lot of these cars are beat to absolute shit and giant turds at this point. Which again sort of tells you what they were all about, because that really, I guess you saw a lot of old beater Benzes back in the day too, so maybe I'm not being fair, but anyway, this one is unusually nice. Big tail lamps in the back, but only a hint of the old Mercedes ridges in the taillights that I liked. Little bit of chrome here and there, none around the windows, all of that's gone, replaced by black. Just a sort of a row of Illuma trim here at the bottom of the greenhouse, and also a little row on the impact strip on the side. Not really chrome, just sort of an aluminum thing. It's got a very sloped back window and a big greenhouse, because actually this car, though smaller outside, was bigger inside than the 140 it replaced, and that was also part of the plan. You can see there's almost a weird little ducktail spoiler coming up at the back of the trunk, and you can also see the way that the rear of the car is curved. It very, very curved compared to many cars. The door handles are sunk in. They've got a little bit of chrome trim on them. The mirrors are more aerodynamicized, and they started putting lights in them. All in all, it is a handsome design, and it did give impact when it pulled up somewhere. It was still an S-Class. I mean, you pulled up in a BMW 7 Series, and people said, that's nice. There's a retired, architect on his way to the golf course, but an S-Class pulls up and you just don't know who's going to be in it, what kind of sinister bastard, and that is one of the things that does make S's cool. On those big xenon headlamps up front, thank God they did use glass. Is that, oh my God, no. I don't know. That could be plastic. That's really embarrassing. I hope not. And these things are washers here that will pop up and give them a spray in case your headlights get dusty. And you can see the mesh there at the bottom of the grille, and a little sort of simulated front air dam meant to mimic the look of a Formula One car at the time. And being pretty well optioned, this one has the sensors in the bumper. So, all right, let's just get into this thing. Alright, see, this one is a power trunk, which is making noises on me, so let's give it a go here. Yeah, I think that one needs some hydraulic fluid in there. Oh, listen to that. They're going to have to fix that. Actually, I looked for hydraulic fluid earlier in Peter's garage. I opened the door and the alarm went off. It was a little bit devastating. The alarm company called. It woke Peter up. Hopefully he didn't have some Tinderella next to him. But anyway, I couldn't find it, or at least I didn't look after the alarm gave me away. So anyway, maybe that's just a little bit of fun for the morning. But a decent-sized trunk, even if it didn't have the same cargo as the prior S. This one does have the infant containment net deployed, so that's a nice thing on every car, as we like to point out. You can throw your infants or toddlers in here, and the net keeps them in place. If you stop too hard, they might go forward and then snap back, but I don't think it's going to be hard enough to give them any trouble. So for the most part, they'll be pretty happy back there, as long as the weather isn't too hot. Get under here and you find all the tools that you're going to need to repair your car on the side of the road. You've got pliers, you've got wrenches. I mean, man, your average S-Class buyer probably couldn't even identify what these things are, honestly. I don't know what Mercedes is thinking, but there it is. You've got a row of fuses, you've got your tow hook, you got your battery back there because it helps with weight, you've got a jackknife nicely towed. And over there you've got your 6-disc changer for, your old Bryan Adams CDs, and of course a full-size spare tire. So a very nice, proper Mercedes trunk back here. Maybe more content than they would have liked to have, because all that's expensive. And this thing, never lose these. These are great because Mercedes uses wheel bolts instead of lug nuts. You have to screw this thing into the threaded insert, and then you can hang the spare tire off that, and it makes it much easier to put on. But anyway, there it is. Everything looking good under there, and we'll put that back down. I do have to say, this is a particularly nice example. And a suck-down power trunk. Oh, that sound. Oh, God. Let's have a look under the hood. These things are, yeah, it's a historical Mercedes thing, and one-handed you're tempted to use it to lift up the trunk, but they are very easy to break off. Okay, so here we go. Everything nice and clean and proper under there, and this was also a bit of the decontenting. This is a 302 horsepower. It's called an M113 engine. It's got 24 valves. It's got single overhead cams. It was very fuel efficient at the time, while still putting out enough beef to be, if not class leading, certainly very close to it, and more than enough pep to move the car down the road. And that was, again, not... Mercedes isn't necessarily supposed to focus on being a fuel-efficient engine. I mean, by today's standards, it's a dinosaur. It drinks gas like a hippo, but I don't know if hippos drink gas, whatever. But then it was considered fuel-efficient and, part of the cheapening. It also used rack and pinion steering, very unlike the more luxurious recirculating ball that the prior cars had. Now, recirculating ball isn't as responsive. Rack and pinion is definitely more peppy to steer, but it doesn't have the same luxury feel that the recirculating ball did. So that was another area they got a little flack. You can see those airlines going into the top of the strut towers. That runs the airmatic suspension in this car, which was an innovation at the time. I shouldn't say that. I mean, it's kind of the one that had hydro, pneumatic air suspension with fluid as well, was copied from old Citroën. So it's not exactly, oh, for God. You see, that's where the whiskey comes in, and just anyway. It uses trailing arms, trailing links, front and back. It uses these things that replace the traditional coil springs with air that can be instantly upped and down to help with cornering and help with smoothness and raise and lower the car. In fact, when this thing's at highway speeds, it lowers 15 millimeters to make it more aerodynamic and more stable on the in the fast lane. So it has all of those little bits and tricks. It goes through a 5G, they call it 5G Tronic tranny, that 5G Tronic transmission that is driver adaptive, so it actually learns how you drive the car and starts shifting accordingly. I'm sure that stays working. You can see all these big series of lines for the ABS. The car did have big, great brakes that hauled it down faster than the one before it, so you got all of that. And all in all, it was a very nice, proper drivetrain, but it's also a very modular, not distinctive drive. I mean, they use this in CLKs, the same engine. I mean, it was meant to be used across the Mercedes lineup. It was far from being distinct to just the S Class. And some people might argue that it lost some of the grandeur, of earlier. I mean, you go back to like Pullman cars in the 6.3s of the early 70s, the ones that had vacuum-operated power windows. I mean, they were made to be livery machines, and they had their own engines and, an incredible amount of distinctiveness to them, and this one did not. But it is what it is. But anyway, there it is under the hood, and everything looking pretty good. So I'm going to take another break right there, and then we're going to jump in this car, have a look at the interior, and then go for a spin. So bear with me for one more moment. All right, I've got my tag hanging in the back and we're going to go. You can see this one is badged an S500, and that's correct, and probably the most prevalent of the 220 lineup. They probably sold the most of these. They had a different V8, the S430. They had a 6-cylinder. It was 06 only in the United States. The S350, that was short wheelbase. This one is, of course, a long wheelbase. They had a V12 like they did in the prior models. They had a host of AMG engines with superchargers and without, and a whole variety of engines that you could choose from in these things, and different setups and platforms, and it was all great. But the S500 is probably the most prevalent. No nitwit has yet put a $12 eBay AMG badge on the other side of the car, which is great. And people, you know who you are. If you're doing that, just stop, okay? Leave the AMG badges for the AMG cars, and stop with your stolen valor. Nobody's fooled who matters. But anyway, let's just hop in. The big fucking language. Look at the big meats on this thing with the heavy Michelin. A nice big set of wheels and tires. The AMG Sport package does enhance these cars a lot. Okay, let's have a look inside. So this one has the rear seat package, which was kind of an expensive option. And what that means is you've got this dual split rear seats with their own power controls. Works very nice. So you're, Lithuanian gangster in the back is sitting there and recline and go for a nap before doing gang warfare with some other Estonian gangster. This little bit cheaper than prior S classes. There can be no doubt about that at all, but still mainly befitting of a Mercedes, maybe just more of a C class than an S class, and that was part of the crying that happened when this car came out. But you've got this little bit of bunched leather, you've got airbags here, you've got curtain airbags, and you've got like 8 airbags in this car, which was also innovative at the time, and it kept everybody nice and safe inside. Here's your sort of very clever Mercedes seat switch that works great. They're heated and cooled there in the back. Somebody has all-weather mats down in this one, which is fine. I'm not a big fan of rubber mats. And, sitting back here, it's nice. You have little rear lights and little cocaine mirrors, and you can open up the center console. And you got a nice place to put some sort of little Walther, maybe even a bigger, revolver or something, which is great. There's probably a pass-through to the back, but I don't immediately feel it, so maybe not. You got little things here where Dalton didn't bother to take out the napkin someone threw in there. And you see these vents here at the back. That's part of that ventilated seat thing, which was new for these cars at the time. Supposed to be one of the Mercedes innovations. And you also get, what do you get? Little rear backward facing air vents and very cheapo shit handles up here, which is exactly part of the complaints about these cars. If you look at them now, they're all leather and chrome, so Mercedes heard that and responded. And if you look at the back, you can see this one has the sunscreen deployed to keep the sun off the neck of your Canadians in the back. So all in all, they're going to be pretty chipper back there. It's not a bad place to be, and being the extended version, it does have pretty good legroom. These things also have soft closed doors, which miraculously are working on this car. And I mean miraculously. I mean, that when I see that on a used car, I see Michelin's and the soft closed doors working, I know that the guy who owned this thing has spent, probably $1.2 million lifetime keeping it maintained. So kudos to that fella. Okay, front seat, we've got, more of the same. We've got Mercedes infernal little beeping. I haven't even done any. All I've done is open the door, and it's beeping warnings at me for reasons I can't imagine. Warning, you've opened the door. Anyway, you can see everything is much the same as it is in the back. You've got your, your seat controls here, 52-way power seats with heating, cooling. You've got your mirror controls. The switchgear is kind of cheap, I have to say, for what Mercedes was supposed to be at the time. But, that was part of the plan. You've got your windows down here. You got your Bose. I think it's a Delta 2 system from Bose. It's like 6-channel digital audio. More airbags here on the side. And you know, everything nice and together on the car, but definitely not up to the levels of the 140 that came before it. This one also has the dynamic seats, or at least the massage seats, with a wide variety of adjustments. I didn't remember it had them when I got in it, so I'm going to test it. We'll see if those work. I doubt it. They never do. But anyway, the ventilated, with the S500, you got the upgraded Napa leather, and this one is now perforated for those ventilated seats. This car does have quite a few options. So it also has keyless go, but they didn't give me a key card. I don't know if they have one. This was that 1 year only where they had cards. The shit wasn't inside the key to use the keyless go, so we'll see if they have one of those hanging around later. But otherwise, we put that in there, give it a twist, and let it fire up. And it's still friggin' beeping at me. Shut up! God, you don't do anything and it's warning you. I mean, these are such big, somber, humorless cars, and there's just no reason for them to give you all these little warnings. Move forward. You can see this one as Parktronic. Mercedes was very fond of the Tronic, you know, ending on their equipment at the time. And that's front and rear parking sensors basically up on the top of the dash. And back in. So you have a very nice sort of backlighted Lexus style instrument cluster. You know, we're of the era now where Mercedes was copying them instead of the other way around. And I remember the earlier ones did have some issues with staying proper, and this one appears to be okay, which is interesting. Probably was fixed at some point. You do get a traditional Mercedes cruise control stock. You've got your wiper switch here. This one has the optional wood and leather steering wheel. In the 500s, they used a walnut wood, which is nice. The gauges, you've got your water temp, you've got your fuel, you got exterior temperature, you got a little driver information center there that'll tell you, you know, what you got going on, Navi, all that other crap, messages. This was one of the first cars to be sort of a rolling office where all of these things intertwined. The phone was connected to the radio, was connected to the navigation, and also the voice control. So let's see what we got on the radio. Huey Lewis. That's nice 80s stuff. But anyway, if you wanted to, and this was new, so if you wanted to change this, you've got your little voice control up here. So let's see this. 94.5. Yeah, and it actually works. So this was the second gen voice command. It went from 30 commands to like 300 and brought in the navigation and phone and some other stuff as well. So it all worked very well. You got this row of switches up here, switch gear on top of this swoopy little wooden panel that goes across. ESP, electronic stability program. That's sort of a fancy traction control thing. Airmatic, this will firm up the shocks. You've got two different settings on this one. Airmatic convenience. What the hell? What's the first one? I don't know what it's doing. The hell with it. I'm going to leave it. Anyway, look, this firms up the ride if you need it to be a little bit stiffer. Sports 2, there it is. And there it is. So anyway, this will raise and lower the car like an old Citroen DS. I often say that's to get over the head of the gangster you just slaughtered in an alley. You have to drive over his body. That'll give you a little extra ground clearance to get over him. It also works well for loading the car on a trailer, which you may need to do at various times and go down bumpy roads. This will knock down the rear seat rests when I press it. Let's see if that works. Yeah, it does. So if you're trying to back up, look in reverse, the Canadians left their seat rests up. That'll knock them down. Hazard switch, door lock. This turns off the alarm when it's getting towed. That's an important button. This will turn off the parking sensors when it's going off in the Starbucks drive-thru. And that one raises and lowers the sunscreen. Over here you've got a glove box with a bunch of extra shit in it. All very nice. And they give you this, what is this, like a little mirror, another mirror for people? No. A little place to put your narcotics, your kit, your pills, your drugs, your bags, you know, whatever it is you need to keep yourself going. Much more useful than the perfumery in modern S classes. Up here you have a self-dimming mirror with home link suspension. You've got SOS, which is Germany's annoying version of OnStar. Instead of an angry American woman, it has an angry German woman. You've got, you know, sun visors of some variety with neither one seemed to be working. You've got a screened sunroof there with glass. You can put that back. One touch with sensors for safety, and for the moment that all seems to be working fine, which is fascinating. I can't tell, mostly in folks, those things go forward and then bounce back, but not in this one. It's working good. Down here you have Mercedes' earlier command unit, cockpit, management, and data system. This one has navigation, but it's super old. It's like, you know, having Pac-Man in your dashboard. Not all that exciting, but you do have radio, you have your telephone, you have your CD, you have even a tape deck. You press that and I think the screen, let's see if I eject it. Yeah, it comes down, you put a tape deck in there. All very interesting stuff, and you can turn off the display if it annoys you. This is the rudest thing I've ever seen right here. It gives you what you immediately think is a volume knob, but it's not. This is just like a twist mousy knob, and the volume is the plus and minus beneath it, and that was really annoying, and I'm not the only one who was annoyed by that. They changed it in '04. This is the air conditioning, which we're going to put on with all these indecipherable controls to steer the air around this way or that way. You do have an ashtray because people still might have smoked in 2002. You got a great little compartment there for more hidden narcotics or a very small handgun. You've got your gated shifter, at least a approximation of it, that works fine. Your winter and standard settings for the transmission. You've got these cup holders, which are not in there. No more cup holders there. That's right, they moved them. This is just another little narcotics compartment, which does close, and then your cup holders are here, this little wing thing that comes off the center console. And then if you open this, this is kind of interesting. This would have been a Motorola time port at the time. You'd call up, Crockett and Tubbs would be calling each other. They do appear to have made this updatable to Bluetooth. I haven't tried it, but it's fascinating that old system can now be a Bluetooth system with no modifications. No guarantees, haven't tried it, but there it is. And then if you lift that one up, you've got a deeper compartment for more crap. So, oh God. Anyway, multifunction steering wheel with all the different crap, your phone answering, your this, that, the other. This was a technological marvel, this car, at the time. And, it was innovative, but not all of the stuff that it had was quite yet dependable. And that is one of the issues with these cars, is all that little crap can break and become costly. Because again, it just wasn't built like the super long-term Mercedes livery cars of the past. But looking out the hood, you got your chairman of the board S class thing. You see the big star ahead. It does have a very cushy ride. This aromatic must be working perfectly because it feels very nice. I'm going to put my ventilated seats on. And the steering, even though it is rack and pinion, is not too light. So they must have tuned that feel a little bit like a recirculating ball. And you do get a nice growl from that V8, even though it was sort of as much about fuel mileage as it was about being peppy. But look, man, going down the road, okay, it is an S. You still do get the feel that you're in a high-quality machine. Nice windshield, from Dalton. That really looks good. High-quality machine, ready to eat up, hundreds of miles of interstate at 110 miles an hour and, transport whoever's with you into a better place than you're going to be able to go and have fun while doing it. I mean, it is a Mercedes S class. There's no question about that. Yes, it was smaller and cheaper than the one that came before it, but it kind of had to be. I mean, they really couldn't go up from the W140. That car was just insane. So they either had to keep it at the same level, which wouldn't make sense because it was coming under criticism, or they had to change the way they were building cars, which they did. So, even if I do kind of like this car, it was a harbinger of the negatives that were going to come from Mercedes and how they went away even more so from being this German nuts, bolts, wood, leather, steel thing to being more disposable lease type cars that is really all you see in the modern era. nice engine sound, nice shifting as well, I have to say, particularly for O2. The shifts are nice and crisp. You know, it kicks the car down the road. I want to say 0 to 60 was well under 7 seconds. I don't think it got into the 5s, but I think it was in the 6s. And, you know, you can feel that it definitely has some pep. It does have double pane glass, though not quite as exotic looking as the one in the 140, but that does help keep the cabin quiet. And of course, that's another big part of S classes. You're supposed to be able to cruise at 130 miles an hour with no wind noise, and, you know, nice soft ride on your ass, and, you know, nothing feeling like you're supposed to feel like you're in a high-speed bullet train or something, you know, instead of just a normal car. And this car, they did pull that off. They might have pulled it off more with technology than anything else, but they did pull it off. So it is kind of a lovely car to drive. Anyway, look, I'm not going to have you sit here waiting at lights with me for the sake of a 220 car. So we're just going to go from there. I've got more stuff coming. I do have an old New Yorker coming up. I'm looking forward to that. That car will be ready soon. I do have a 140 car, which I'm going to do because, you know, why not? I like 140 cars, even if they're bizarre. And we'll try to get some more fun stuff hanging around, see what's out there. Otherwise, thank you guys so much for watching. Really appreciate it. I'll try to up the quantity of videos as we go, get past one a week. But, you know, I don't want to just do any old thing hanging around. It's got to have at least some kind of fun for me, like this one did. So really appreciate it, and we will see you with the next one. Oh, I should say that this is an Autohaus car for the guys there. If you're interested, give them a shout. 239-263-8500 on the web at autohausnaples.com. And I can tell you, this one's pretty nice. There's my little sales pitch for those guys. I haven't seen one this nice in a long time. Definitely somebody loved this car, and it's, you know, the triple black, the obsidian black. It's a nice piece. It's a nice piece. If I wanted to daily drive a W220, I think I'd probably pick one pretty much like this. So thanks again. See you next time.